Good evening, welcome back. We're going to start on activity 3-5. We got through 3-4 in class last week, working on some password lockout policies. Now we're going to work on an actual password settings policy. And we're going to create a password settings object. So first thing we're going to do is create a new group to apply this to. So it's going to be new AD group, the name of the group, in this case PSO-group, and then the group scope, which would be global. Remember, there's local groups, there's global groups, and universal groups. And most groups would usually be global groups, and that's what this will be in this case. So we're going to create that. And we need to add a user to it, so we're going to add AD group, we'll tab here, PSO, we got define the group name again, and then test user 1 will be our guinea pig. If we come and look in Active Directory, do a little refresh here. So we see the PSO group was created, and the member is test user 1. We can also look at test user 1 and see that he's or she is a member of that group as well. Alright, so the group is created now. Now we need to go to Server Manager so we can do the next step. Go to Server Manager, and then I will open our Active Directory Administrative Center. Alright, so from here we'll go to our domain, go to System, Password Settings Container, and then we'll create a new password setting policy object. Alright, we will name this PSO1, precedence of 5. Let's see, we will make it 1 day, 42 days, password length of 4, which is incredibly weak. Please don't ever do this. Password history of 5. That may or may not be acceptable depending on the organization's posture. And then we're going to turn off the password complexity requirements. And we're going to add this to the PSO group. Remember, I just was able to type in part of that, and it was able to find it. If there was multiple options, it would come up with a list and ask you which one it was. Alright, so let's make sure these are the correct settings. Click OK. Now we have a passwords setting policy. So if we wanted to go back and see our policy or make any changes, we could double click on it from here and open it. And then now we can configure changes. Alright, so now we're going to we're going to go find users here. We're going to change the settings on test user 1. Force test user 1 to change their password on the next login, which is right here. By the way, when you hover over some of these items, they'll give you a little context box, but this one is the same as the actual description itself. And while we're in here, so we only applied test user 1 to that policy. Test user 2 is still under the standard domain policy, which, if you remember, is set to a minimum of 7 characters and has complexity requirements. So if we were to try to reset this user's password to something really weak, like pass1, shouldn't work here. And it did not work. It does not meet the complexity or the length requirements. Alright, let's go over to server DM1 here. Let's go log in as test user. See what happens. Wait for it. Let me change that. Okay, so it's saying we have to change the password. Now we'll try to change this to the super secure password of pass1. There we go. Once again, have it the same in both places. It'll let us change it. Now we have to log in again. And now we're able to get in. Alright, so let's log back out and let's test the lockout policy here. Sign out. I guess I could have locked it too. Same effect. Now we, in one of the earlier tasks, created a lockout policy, right? So let's try some random password a few times here. Huh. Okay, so we tried it several times. But we're still able to log in. Now, if you remember when we created this password policy over here, we had turned off the enforce account lockout policy, which again would be a bad practice. This just for demonstrations. So even though the domain has a policy set with a lockout policy, this password policy object is overriding that setting. So very important to understand how that works. Alright, so that was pretty much showing you some things not to do and kind of just showing where you can configure some stuff and how unintended consequences can allow bad things to happen, like people not getting locked out or the possibility of having really bad passwords. So we'd want to undo those settings here, so we can just delete everything we created. Go back to the default password settings for the domain, and then under a group policy management, we could actually turn off that policy, which I had reapplied anyways.